The emergency klaxons echoed through the crystalline halls of the Galactic Council chambers with all the subtlety of a screaming toddler in a library. Every species in known space had a representative present, and every single one of them looked like they were about to collectively wet themselves. Which, considering some of them didn't even have conventional bladders, was quite the achievement. Commander ZHKar of the Vraxian Empire stood at the central podium, his 4 arms crossed in what his species considered a posture of grave authority. To humans, it would have looked like he was trying to hug himself while having an existential crisis. His scales rippled with bioluminescent warning patterns that translated roughly to, "We are monumentally screwed." "The prophecy has come to pass," ZHKar announced, his voice booming through the translation matrix. "After 1,000 cycles of preparation, the scourge returns. 1,000 years. An entire millennium of military buildup, technological innovation, and strategic planning. The galaxy had constructed orbital fortress networks that could crack planets. They had bred warrior castes specifically designed to fight this one threat. They had developed weapons that violated at least 17 different conventions on ethical warfare. They had simulated this scenario approximately 4.7 million times. They were ready. They were prepared. They were absolutely terrified. And then there were the humans, who had been part of galactic society for exactly 12 years and had apparently missed the memo about appropriate levels of existential dread. The holographic display materialized above the council floor, and if fear had a visual representation, this was it. The scourge wasn't just an enemy. It was the enemy. The kind of nightmare that made other nightmares wake up screaming and reconsider their career choices. Billions of mechanical entities, each the size of a small spacecraft, moved through the void like a swarm of particularly angry metallic locusts. They consumed everything. Planets, stations, ships, the occasional unfortunate asteroid that happened to be in the wrong neighborhood. They broke down matter at the molecular level and replicated themselves, growing exponentially. The last time they had appeared, they had devoured 40% of known civilized space before mysteriously vanishing back into the dark between galaxies. Now they were back, and they looked hungry. The Krell delegation immediately activated their battle meditation, their telepathic warriors entering a synchronized trance state they had been training for across 30 generations. The Thoraxian Hive Queen began vomiting up her specially engineered soldier drones, each one grown in biotanks for the past 2 centuries specifically to fight mechanical opponents. The Zenthari had already deployed their fleet of 90,000 warships, each one equipped with experimental quantum disruptors that had cost more than some planets' entire economic output. Commander ZHKar's tactical display showed the defensive perimeter, a 300 light-year shell of overlapping defensive installations, minefield networks dense enough to be visible from hyperspace, and enough firepower to sterilize a galaxy arm. Every species had contributed. Every species had prepared. "All stations report ready status," ZHKar announced, his voice carrying the weight of 1,000 years of planning. "We have anticipated every variable, every possible outcome. Our ancestors died to give us this advantage. We will not fail them." He pulled up another display, this one showing Earth's solar system in the Outer Rim territories, practically on the doorstep of the Scourge's projected invasion vector. "Someone get me the human representative," ZHKar commanded. "Now. They are directly in the path of the initial wave, and they need to evacuate immediately." What arrived was so much worse than he could have possibly imagined. Marcus Chen materialized via transport beam into the council chambers wearing cargo shorts, a faded t-shirt that read, "I survived the Toronto Raccoon Uprising of 2183, and flip-flops that squeaked against the polished floor with every step. He was eating what appeared to be some kind of wrapped sandwich and carrying a travel mug that said, "Galaxy's okayest ambassador." The collective gasp from the assembled species sounded like a wind tunnel having an asthma attack. Sorry, Marcus said through a mouthful of food, holding up one finger. He chewed, swallowed, then took a long sip from his mug. Traffic was crazy. You would not believe the lineup at the transit station. Apparently, everyone's trying to get a good view of this whole end of the galaxy thing. ZH Car's scales flickered through several colors that didn't have names in human languages, but roughly translated to confused rage mixed with impending aneurysm. Ambassador Chen, ZH Car said, his voice strained. Your world is in the direct path of the scourge. We are initiating emergency evacuation protocols for your system. You have approximately 48 hours before, oh yeah, the murder robots, Marcus interrupted, waving his sandwich dismissively. We got the email. Very dramatic, by the way. Love the ominous music attachment. Really set the mood. This is not a joke. Counselor Vexnari shrieked from her pod, her tentacles writhing in distress. This is an extinction-level threat. Your species needs to evacuate now. Marcus looked genuinely puzzled. Evacuate? Nah, we're good. Actually, this is pretty exciting. We haven't had a decent apocalypse scenario since the whole AI singularity thing last month. That was a Tuesday, I think. Or was it Wednesday? Anyway, everyone's pretty hyped about this one. The silence that followed could have suffocated a black hole. I'm sorry, ZH Car said slowly. Did you just say you're excited? Marcus grinned. Oh buddy, you have no idea what you've done by putting this on our calendar. ZH Car's patience, which had been cultivated through decades of military discipline and meditation, evaporated like water on a sun's surface. Show me your military readiness reports. Immediately. Oh sure, yeah, let me pull those up. Marcus fumbled with his datapad, swiping past what looked suspiciously like a mobile game about farming vegetables. Here we go. Earth's official response to the Scourge threat. The hologram that materialized made several council members physically recoil that it was a meme. A picture of the Scourge with poorly photoshopped sunglasses and the caption, POV, "You're about to have a very bad millennium." Below it, the hashtag Apocalypse Bingo was trending with approximately 4 billion posts. What, ZH Car said flatly, is this? Oh, that's just the warm-up content, Marcus said cheerfully, scrolling through. Check this out. We've got live betting pools on which city gets hit first. Current odds favor Tokyo, but there's a strong underdog movement for Detroit because, and I quote, it would be funny. We've got 24-hour news coverage with expert panels debating optimal survival strategies. There's a drinking game where you take a shot every time someone says, humanity's last stand. 3 people are already in the hospital for alcohol poisoning and the Scourge isn't even here yet. He swiped again. Oh, and here's the Apocalypse Bingo cards. You get squares for things like, government denies obvious threat, scientist ignored until too late, unexpected hero emerges, and the free space in the middle is just someone says this is fine while everything burns. Counselor Vexnari's tentacles had gone completely rigid. You're treating an extinction event as entertainment? Well yeah, Marcus said, as if this were the most obvious thing in the universe. What else would we do? Panic? That's boring and unproductive. Oh, speaking of productivity, the economy is booming right now. We've got Scourge-themed restaurants selling last meal on Earth specials. Toy manufacturers are cranking out collectible Scourge action figures. There's a symphonic metal band that wrote a concept album about the invasion and it dropped yesterday. Already gone platinum. He pulled up another image, children playing with toy Scourge drones, making explosion noises. That seems, ZH Car searched for words, psychologically unhealthy. Listen, Commander, Marcus set down his sandwich and actually looked serious for a moment. Humans have had, let me check my notes, approximately 17 apocalypse-level scenarios this century alone. Climate collapse, rogue AI, 3 separate pandemics, that thing with the nanobots, the Great Emu War II, Electric Boogaloo, and honestly I'm forgetting a few. We've learned that if you spend all your time being terrified, you just end up miserable and dead. At least this way we're entertained. But you're military, ZH Car started. Oh, they're ready, Marcus interrupted. They're just also having fun with it. Admiral Torres sent me a selfie this morning. She's wearing a headband that says Scourge Slayer with little LED lights. Morale has never been higher. The council sat in stunned, horrified silence. You're all going to die, Vexnari whispered. Marcus shrugged. Probably. But it's gonna be hilarious. 47 hours later, the Scourge hit human space like a tidal wave of malevolent metal and bad intentions. The Galactic Council watched the sensor feeds with the grim resignation of people watching a puppy wander into traffic. They had lit memorial candles. The Thoraxians had already begun composing the death hymns. ZHCar stood at attention, prepared to witness humanity's final moments with the dignity they apparently refused to afford themselves. What they saw instead would haunt them for the rest of their considerably long lives. The first wave of Scourge drones descended on Earth's outer colonies, their targeting systems locked on infrastructure and population centers. Standard procedure: eliminate defenses, harvest resources, replicate, repeat. They were met by a 70-year-old retiree named Gerald Hutchins in a modified pleasure yacht called the Midlife Crisis. Gerald had welded approximately 24 mining lasers to his hull and was screaming something about property values through an open comm channel. "Get off my lawn, you mechanical bastards." Gerald's ship rammed directly into a Scourge drone 3 times its size, both vessels exploding in a spectacular fireball. Did he just? Counselor Vexnari couldn't finish the sentence. The sensors lit up with thousands of similar signatures. Civilian ships, cargo haulers, personal transports, all modified with whatever weapons their owners could strap on. A luxury cruise liner called the Tipsy Navigator had somehow mounted a rail gun to its observation deck and was firing while its automated system still played cheerful buffet announcements. Then the actual military showed up, and things got weird. Admiral Jessica Torres broadcast on all frequencies, human and Scourge, her voice carrying the exact energy of a sports announcer on too much caffeine. "Good morning, murderous robot friends. Welcome to Earth, we've been expecting you. Unfortunately, your Yelp reviews are terrible, so we're going to have to ask you to leave." Violently. Her flagship, the UHNS Absolute Unit, didn't fire conventional weapons. Instead, it launched what appeared to be thousands of small objects. Are those, ZHCar zoomed in on the sensors, rubber ducks? They were indeed rubber ducks. Rubber ducks loaded with electromagnetic pulse charges, painted to look like tiny pirates, flooding the Scourge's sensor arrays with so many tiny signatures that their targeting computers had what could only be described as a mechanical stroke. While the Scourge was distracted by pirate ducks, human fighters swarmed in using no discernible formation whatsoever. One pilot was literally flying loop-de-loops while firing randomly. Another had painted his ship to look like a giant middle finger. The human networks were broadcasting play-by-play commentary. And here comes the Panama City militia with a shopping cart full of homemade explosives. That's got to be at least 7 different violations of the Geneva Convention, folks. Oh, and what's this? Someone's playing death metal at maximum volume directly at the Scourge frequency. The machines look confused. Can machines look confused? Our expert says yes. The Scourge's hive intelligence, which had conquered countless civilizations through cold logical analysis, encountered something it had never faced before: opponents who made absolutely no tactical sense whatsoever. A freight hauler named Big Bessie literally dropped its entire cargo of expired yogurt onto a Scourge formation. No one knew why. It shouldn't have done anything. Somehow, it worked. The Scourge drones that got hit with fermented dairy products started corroding, their hull integrity failing as the bacterial cultures ate through their molecular bonds. Humanity had accidentally weaponized food poisoning. Everyone start throwing food. Admiral Torres's voice boomed across all channels. If it's expired, it's a weapon. Grandma's mystery casserole is now ordnance. ZHCar watched the chaos unfold, his 4 arms hanging limply at his sides. "This shouldn't be working," he whispered, but it was. The actual breakthrough came from Bob Rodriguez, a cargo hauler who had been transporting a shipment of kimchi to the Mars colonies when the Scourge showed up. Bob, demonstrating the kind of decision-making that would make any military strategist weep, decided his cargo was ruined anyway and just vented the entire hold directly into an approaching scourge cluster. 40,000 gallons of fermented cabbage erupted into the void. The scourge drones didn't just malfunction. They disintegrated. The bacterial cultures in the kimchi, designed to break down organic matter, turned out to be absolutely spectacular at breaking down the scourge's exotic metal alloys. Within seconds, a formation of 300 war machines turned into expanding clouds of metallic confetti. "Holy crap," Bob said over the open channel. "Did my lunch just win the war?" Simultaneously, on Earth's surface, a teenager named Melissa Park was trying to pirate the latest season of her favorite show when she accidentally bounced her hacking signal off a Scourge communication node. The swarm's frequency, it turned out, was almost identical to commercial entertainment broadcasts. Her illegal streaming software crashed 17 Scourge command clusters. "Mom!" Melissa yelled down the stairs. "I think I just hacked the apocalypse." The transformation in human tactics was instantaneous and terrifying. Admiral Torres didn't even hesitate. "All ships, deploy biological weapons. I want every fermented food product in human space weaponized within the hour. Sauerkraut, kombucha, that weird Swedish fish thing, your aunt's potato salad that's been in the fridge since last Christmas, I don't care. If it can give you food poisoning, it can kill these metal bastards. And get me every hacker, script kiddie, and kid who's ever pirated a movie. We're turning teenage rebellion into a weapon of mass destruction." The casual efficiency was somehow worse than the chaos. Humans didn't celebrate their discovery. They didn't debate ethics or strategic implications. They just immediately industrialized it. Within 30 minutes, every human ship was equipped with biological payload dispensers, which were literally just containers of spoiled food. Hacker collectives coordinated digital attacks with the precision of a military operation, except they were doing it while trash-talking each other in game chat. The Scourge, an intelligence that had consumed galaxies, was being systematically destroyed by expired yogurt and internet piracy. ZHCar couldn't even process what he was witnessing anymore. His brain had simply given up. 48 hours after the Scourge entered human space, the threat was over. Not retreating. Not regrouping. Over. Destroyed. Defeated by fermented vegetables and teenage hackers with too much free time, the Galactic Council contacted Earth expecting to find a species in mourning, counting their dead, processing trauma. Instead, Marcus answered the call wearing a new t-shirt that read, "I survived the Scourge and all I got was this lousy t-shirt." Behind him, people were already dismantling defensive positions to sell as scrap metal. A news broadcast showed a reporter interviewing someone who had turned Scourge debris into lawn ornaments. "The merchandise is already out?" ZHCar asked, his voice hollow. "Oh yeah, capitalism waits for no apocalypse," Marcus said cheerfully. "We've got commemorative coins, action figures, a musical opening next month. Some guy is already selling authentic Scourge fragments on the internet. They're mostly just regular metal, but nobody's checking." "Oh, and that teenager who hacked them? She got a scholarship and a Netflix deal." "How?" Counselor Vexnari's tentacles trembled. "How are you all just fine?" Marcus leaned back in his chair, suddenly looking more thoughtful than the galaxy had ever seen him. "You want the honest answer? We cope through humor because the alternative is paralysis. You all spent 1,000 years preparing, building defenses, living in fear of this thing. You made it your entire existence. We had 12 years' notice and spent 11 of those arguing about whether it was even real." He gestured to Earth spinning peacefully behind him. "Humans live in constant low-key apocalypse mode, Commander. Climate's trying to kill us, politics is a dumpster fire, the economy's always on the verge of collapse, and every other week someone invents something that could accidentally end civilization. We can't afford to treat every existential threat like it's special. We'd never get anything done. So you just don't take anything seriously?" ZHCar asked. "We take it seriously enough to win," Marcus corrected. We just don't let it consume us. Your 1,000-year preparation made you rigid, predictable. The Scourge knew how you'd react because you'd been practicing the same response for centuries. We didn't have a plan, so we had to improvise. Turns out unpredictability is a pretty good weapon. The realization settled over the council like a cold blanket: humans weren't dangerous because they were prepared. They were dangerous because they fundamentally refused to accept the premise that any threat was too big to mock. They lived in perpetual chaos and had learned to weaponize it. "You're absolutely insane," Vexnari whispered. "Yeah, probably," Marcus agreed. "But we're alive and the Scourge isn't, so whose approach worked better?" No one had an answer to that point. 3 weeks later, the Galactic Council held a formal ceremony to honor humanity's victory. They had prepared medals, commendations, speeches that had been carefully crafted to convey appropriate gravitas. The humans turned it into a party. Someone brought a karaoke machine. Admiral Torres was doing shots with a Thoraxian warrior drone who had never consumed alcohol before and was discovering why that was probably a good policy. A group of fighter pilots had started a conga line that somehow incorporated delegates from 14 different species. The memorial candles the Thoraxians had lit were being used to roast marshmallows. Marcus accepted Earth's Medal of Galactic Service while wearing a novelty foam hat shaped like a Scourge drone. "I think you all kind of overthought this whole thing," he said, slightly drunk, gesturing broadly at the assembled dignitaries. "You spent a millennium preparing for war and forgot that sometimes the best weapon is just pure chaotic energy and spite. Also expired dairy products. Never underestimate expired dairy products." ZH Carr, who had been drinking something significantly stronger than his usual ceremonial beverage, just nodded wearily. "Your species terrifies me, Ambassador Chen." "That's the nicest thing anyone said to me all week," Marcus replied, genuinely touched. As the party continued into its 6th hour, Marcus checked his phone and laughed. "Oh hey, looks like we've got a new crisis. Apparently, some corporation accidentally created sentient advertising algorithms and they're demanding workers' rights." "Are you concerned?" ZH Carr asked, though he already knew the answer. "Nah," Marcus said, taking another sip of his drink. "It's only a Tuesday. Check back with me when it's actually apocalyptic. Like maybe Thursday level apocalyptic. That's when things get interesting." The emergency klaxons had stopped echoing through the council chambers 1,000 years ago. Now they were drowned out by extremely off-key karaoke and the sound of humans teaching aliens how to do the electric slide. The galaxy had prepared for war, humanity had treated it like a joke, and somehow, impossibly, that had been exactly the right approach. ZH Carr raised his glass in a toast. "To humanity. May we never truly understand them." "Cheers to that," Marcus agreed. "Though honestly, we don't understand ourselves either. We're just really good at pretending we do." Somewhere in the void, the Scourge's final transmission was intercepted by a human listening post. It was a single message, repeated endlessly: "Error. Logic failure. Does not compute. Retreat protocol initiated." The operator who found it posted it online with the caption, "LMAO, the robots rage quit," and it got 40 million likes in an hour. Humanity had moved on. The galaxy's greatest threat in a millennium was already just another meme, another story, another thing that happened that one time, and honestly, that was the most terrifying thing of all.